Okay, so we are still wrapping up our questions on the brachos of Sefiras Omer. So yesterday we did the shehecheyanu on Sefiras Omer and why that. Oh, you know what? Hold on just a second. Sorry, I totally forgot this. This morning, I found. You don't need to cite this. I found a. I was looking in the Encyclopedia Talmudit under shehecheyanu, and they list all the explanations for why Sefiras Omer doesn't get a shehecheyanu. Okay, so just for the sake of comprehensiveness, then I wanted to just read them really quickly because it's Encyclopedia Talmudit, so it's not going to be. We're not going to go and look up all the sources. Birkas Hazman. Yeah. Okay. So if you look in Encyclopedia Talmudit, which by the way is an underrated resource for those who have not used it before, you definitely should because it's an encyclopedia of halacha. Okay. So here's what they say. Al Sefiras Omer in Mevarchin Zman. So it is a consensus that we don't make the bracha of shehecheyanu on all Sefiras Omer. Oh, sorry, on Sefiras Omer. But kamatamim niru ne'emru b'davar. So there are many reasons given for this. Okay, number one, mipnei she'ein ba simcha, because there is no simcha in it. Va'adraba ba'al lezecher la'agmas nafshenu. Rather, it comes as a remembrance of the anguish of our souls. L'churban beis me'oyenu, for the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash due to in our woes. Okay, so that is brought in the Baal HaMaor. Okay, then the next answer is shekol mitzvah zo bizman hazeh ein ela mishum zecher lemikdash. The entire mitzvah nowadays is just for zecher lemikdash, all zecher ba'alma in mevarchim zman. And on a plain zecher, we don't make a bracha of shehecheyanu. That was also the Baal HaMaor. Third answer, she'ein zo mitzvah hanikeres. This is not a mitzvah that is discernible, for there is no discernibility for the days. Don't know exactly what that means. That's cited in the name of the Rokeach. I guess because it's not like you can, so to speak, witness or experience the entire mitzvah like in an event. It is something that accumulates over a period of 49 days. And so you can't just like behold the mitzvah. I'm not sure. I haven't seen this inside. Now, what were you going to say, Joseph?
This is Gimel?
That's Gimel, yeah.
Oh, yeah, my ideas.
Okay, Daled, Shekivin Shasfira Ina Ela L'Tzorach Havas HaBikurim. I was going to read this to you inside yesterday, but it's yeah.
The reason it works into Gimel that it's not a Zman-based mitzvah, it's a Pesach-based mitzvah.
Well, it is a Zman-based mitzvah. I mean, you're saying it based on a certain day. I mean, starting on a certain day and continuing for a certain days.
As you're not saying it because it's the 16th of Nisan. You're saying it's because the day after Pesach.
That's true, but does that really matter? I mean, you stay at shehecheyanu on Shavuos, and Shavuos is also not a Zman-based mitzvah. Yeah, nice try though. Yeah, okay. So then this fourth answer is the Abu Diram, who says Shekema shasfira ina ela l'tzorach havas habikurim shemivim b'chag hashavuos dailo b'birkas hazman. Oh no, this is not the Abu Diram. Since the sphira is only for the sake of the bringing of the bikurim that we bring on chag hashavuos, it's enough for the Birkas Hazman that you say it on the coast on the Moed. Now I think the Moed that it's talking about is on Shavuos. Oh, it is the Abu Diram. That's interesting. Yeah, so that was one of the answers that the Rav cited, which is that some people say that the bracha on Shavuos is poter the mitzvah of Sefiras Omer, which we thought was a little sketchy. 5, shizman sfira tali b'kviyas haPesach, k'mo shekazu usfartem l'chem mimachar saShabbos, l'chein dailo b'birkas hazman shel yom tov atzmo. So this was the Shivlei Haleket's answer that the Rav cited yesterday, which is that since the Sefiras Omer is talui on the establishment of Pesach, because it says mimachras haShabbos, it's enough for the bracha of shehecheyanu on Pesach to qualify for Sefiras Omer. We're just quasi-reviewing something from yesterday, but then we'll start something new in a second after that. 6, Mishmikeven she'im lo safar balayla lo yispor bayom v'im safar bayom lo yatsa in omrim bo birkas hazman. I don't get this one, that since we were doing this question of why don't we make a shehecheyanu on Sefiras Omer? Okay, we're reading summaries of 7 reasons. We went through it in depth yesterday, though. That since if you didn't count at night, then you don't count during the day. And if you counted during the day, then you're not yotze, then we don't make a bracha of shehecheyanu on it. This is the Ran. The footnote says, "V'tzarech bir ki ma inyan zelazeh." What does one have to do with the other? Okay, fine. So I'm not alone in not understanding it. Again, we're just reading this for factual purposes. And 7, kivin she'im lo birach b'yom rishon mevarach b'yomim ha'acherim. ke'ein la zman kavuahu. So since if you didn't make a bracha on Yom Rishon, then you're mevarech on the other days. It's as if it's not a zman kavua. I don't understand that one either. This is the manhig. I don't get that. And yeah, I don't get that. And then there's the Rav's answer from yesterday, which is that Sefiras Omer is counting up to the Matan Torah, and we're looking forward to getting to that future time. But shehecheyanu is a bracha praising God for the simcha on the present time. So it's not appropriate to praise God on a joy on the present time if the entire thing we're doing is saying we're not there yet. Like that's like a kid in a car ride saying, "Yay, we're not there yet." Like that's it's incongruous. Yeah. Okay. So now done shehecheyanu. Okay, next issue here, we're going to go through it, but first we'll go through the halachos. Okay, so the next issue we raise, which we're going to do, is on the Birkas mitzvah. So let's look at, the Rambam in Hilchos Berachos, which I'm just going to show on the screen here. Hilchos Berachos, Yud Aleph Hey, says the basic mitzvah, basic halacha of Birkas mitzvah, which is as follows. Ha'osim mitzvah, v'lo birach. If a person did, okay, it's not the basic halacha. If a person did a mitzvah and didn't say the bracha, Im mitzvah she'adayin asiyasa kayemes, if it is a bracha where the asiyas mitzvah is still like persisting, mevarach achar asiyah, then you can make the Birkas mitzvah after you've done it. He'll give examples in a second. V'im davar sha'avar ba'hu, but if it's something that has already passed, inu mevarach, you can't make a bracha. Okay, ketzad. Harei shnis atef b'tzitzis. Let's say you wrap yourself in tzitzis, or shalavash tefillin, or you put on tefillin, or sheyesh b'sukkah, or you sit in a sukkah, v'lo birach tchila, and you didn't make a bracha beforehand, right? Which you were supposed to do. Chozer u'mavarech la'achar shnis atef, asher kiddushan b'mitzvosav v'tivanu l'his atef b'tzitzis. So you can make the bracha because of mitzvah afterwards. V'chein mevarach achar shallavash. You could also make it after tefillin. Asher kiddushan b'mitzvosav v'tivanu l'hanech tefillin. V'achar sheyashav asher kiddushan b'mitzvosav v'tivanu l'his b'sukkah. V'chein kol kiyot b'zeh.
That's good because I have a hard time actually saying the bracha while I do tefillin because I still have to like read it over because it's hard. Some of the pronunciation.
Yeah.
So I have to like do it and then read what I just did.
Okay. So l'chat chila, you still have to make it beforehand, but he's saying b'diavad, if you didn't, then you can still make the bracha.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you still should try to do it.
Like, okay.
Yeah, it's worth practicing. Okay. Aval, but if im shachat below bracha, if you did shchita without a bracha, you can't go back and do it because the event is over. If you cover the blood without a bracha, or you separate truma and meiser, or you did tvila and you didn't make a bracha, you can't go back and make a bracha afterwards. I feel like this is the wrong halacha that I'm reading. Whatever, it's good to know anyway, but hold on. I'm looking for where he says that the bracha is not ma'akev. Oh, I mean, maybe he's just inferring it from the fact. Maybe the Rav is inferring it from the fact that yeah.
What bracha are you talking about not being ma'akev?
Birkas mitzvah.
We're talking about spilling syrup?
No, in everything else. Oh yeah, there we go. He said, did I just? No, where does he say that you don't have to go back and do the mitzvah? Yeah.
Well, the thing is, if it's ma'akev, then we should do choser.
Yeah, I think maybe that's where he's getting from. If it were ma'akev, then Ram would say you have to go back and do the mitzvah again. But I don't know. I thought he says it explicitly. Hold on just 1 second. Ma'akev means that it's an absolute requirement that if you can't be yotze without it. So let's say, like for example, in Arba Minim, waving it is not ma'akev, meaning you have to wave it, but if you don't, you're still yotze. But having all 4 species is ma'akev, which means if you're missing one, then you're not yotze. So saying a bracha, it's absolutely necessary. Yeah. So saying a bracha on the mitzvah is not ma'akev, meaning you're chayav to say it, but if you didn't say it, you still are yotze the mitzvah. I could have sworn he said it outright, but maybe he doesn't. Okay. Either way, here's our question that we came up with is in Tmidin Umusafin, the very last halacha about Sefiras Omer, he says, V'tzarech levarech b'chol laila, you need to make the bracha of Asher Kiddushan b'mitzvosav v'tzivan al Sefiras Omer every night. Okay, before you count. Mana v'lo yatsa ve'ino choser umavarech. Okay, so he says if you counted and you didn't make the bracha, you're yotze, which is very weird because obviously you're yotze. That's the rule in general. And then he says ve'ino choser umavarech. You don't go back and make another bracha. That's another amina that you would think that maybe if I counted without a bracha, then I should go back and make a bracha afterwards.
Right.
Okay, so these are two hava aminas that we'd like to understand because the Rambam shouldn't have to say this. He should just tell you make a birkas mitzvah, and then we know, like all other cases, the birkas mitzvah is not ma'akev. And speaking of which, if you think that if you don't think that this is a good question, you're in good company. So this is maybe a difference between briskers and non-briskers. Rav Kafach, when he brings down the halacha, he just says, "This is the wrong volume."
Yeah, I have a hard time seeing why I would have thought.
Well, because the general assumption about, there's different Rishonim who have different writing styles, So some Rishonim, if they say something that looks extra, you're like, okay, they're just being wordy, Rambam is one of the ones who is known for...
he just says what that's...
Right, exactly. So if he has to tell you, when he's saying, oh, by the way, if you made the bracha, if you didn't make the bracha, you're still yotze, he has to tell you that because you would think that you would not be yotze,
Okay.
So the question is, why would you ever think that if that's not how halacha works? Okay.
Well, because we didn't know. I'm just saying that the obvious reason because we didn't know.
But you should know. That's the point. Is that for example, Rambam says when you make bracha on when he's talking about tefillin, he says you make the bracha tefillin, and he doesn't say. And if you didn't make the bracha, then you're yotze. Because there's no hava amina that you wouldn't be yotze. Of course you're yotze tefillin if you don't make a bracha.
Why is that? Of course.
That's what I was trying to read in the first part. I'm pretty sure the Rambam says it. I just for some reason can't find it. That's what I want to find. Hold on. This is gonna bother me. Let me pause the recording and just see if I can find it. So now what we're doing is we're going to Hararei Kedem, which I gave on the handout there, which is Rav Shirkin's write-up of the Rav's Torah. Now, what he's going to do is like this. He's going to start off not on the Rambam. He's going to start off with the Shulchan Aruch, okay? And he's going to give us svara. He's going to raise other questions about Sefiras Omer and its anomalies, and then use that to try to answer the Rambam, okay? So the Rambam's not going to occur for another 20 minutes or so, okay? So, but there's going to be other good stuff in between. So he says like this. B'Shulchan Aruch, Orach Chaim, Siman Taf Pei Tes, Siman Vav Kasav. So the Shulchan Aruch writes, Pasach v'amar Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, Adaita dilema hayom revi'i, Shuhu savar shehim revi'i, v'siyem b'chamishi v'hem chamishi, O ifka shehim revi'i upasach adaita v'chule, eno choser mevarach. So here's the case, okay? Let's say, okay, well, what's the actual day of the Omer today?
The 63rd.
I should hope not. Today is the 18th day of the Omer, right? So let's say tonight I say the bracha with in mind that it is the 19th, but I accidentally say 18. Okay. Is that the case? Oh, no. Sorry, hold on. Yeah. Right. So no, the other case is like this. Oh no, it's both cases. Okay. So let's say tonight is 19. Okay. Let's say I start off, and when I say the bracha, I think it's 18, but then I conclude and I actually count 19, and it's actually 19. Okay. Or, let me just read an actual Shulchan Aruch. Hold on, because he doesn't even quote the whole thing. I just want to make sure I got the cases right. Siman Taf Pei Tes Siman Vav. Or sorry, Sif. Okay, let's go here. There's some Shulchan Aruch Bekius today. Oh, I see. I instinctively went to the Mishnah Torah. Chatasi. Okay. Taf Pei Tes Vav, I think. Taf Pei Tes Vav. Okay, here's what he says. Let's get this. Sorry, went to the wrong one. Taf Pei Tes, not Pei Tes. Okay, there we go. Vav. He says, Im pasach v'amar baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam adaita delema hayom dalad. He made the bracha with the intention to say today is the 4th day of the Omer. Shehu savor shem dalad, because he thought it was 4 days. The nizkar, but then he remembers the siyam b'chamishi, v'him chamishi, and he remembers, oh, it's really the 5th day, and he concludes with the 5th. Oh, that's one case. Oh, ifka, or the opposite. Shehim dalad upasach adaita delema arba. Let's say it actually is the 4th day, and he begins with the intent to say 4, v'ta'a v'siyam b'chamishi.
By thinking remembering incorrectly now.
Right. So he's saying the incorrect thing. Ino chozer umavarach. He does not go back and make another bracha. Okay.
What does that actually look like? They start off saying.
He starts off thinking that it's the wrong day, but then ends up counting right. Or he starts off thinking right, but then ends up counting wrong. In either event, he does not go back and make a new Birkas mitzvah.
What if it's just wrong in thinking and saying? If
it's wrong in thinking and saying, then presumably he would have to make a Birkas mitzvah, because he basically just didn't do the mitzvah. He had the wrong thing in mind and didn't do the right thing. I guess maybe we'll see.
And why would
let me see the Mishnah Berurah. Yeah.
I get if you fix it in your mid thought, because now you're just new thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe before changing this, we would just see if there are other halachos that explicitly say the case.
Yeah, that's a good call. Shachach v'lo berach kolala, no. No. Yeah. What do you say, Chizkiah? Yeah.
I don't get why. I get why it's like you fixed it in your thought.
Right.
So so all you did is just change your thought. Fine. By the time you finish it,
right,
the thought wasn't completed.
Right.
But if the thought is completed incorrectly, why is it still okay? Because you had the right thought at first. Yeah, I guess.
Right. So I think
there's more of my question on that, but
okay. So let me see if this answers your question, or maybe I'm not understanding it. But hold on. Let me just see the Mishnah Berurah here. V'sim b'chamishi, Ratzon Moshe Siper Chamisha Yamim. V'tav v'sim Ratzon Moshe Siper Chamisha. Yeah.
So the original question, I think it's in bed.
In bed, okay. Im tau b'yom ha'ma'unin uvirchu al Sefiras ha'omer chozrim lispor mishatech shach. If you make a mistake on a cloudy day and you make the bracha, and that has to do with what time you count. Yeah. So your question, Chizkiyahu, is if I correct it in my thought,
which is the only way you can end up saying right, you were miscar, it's still a thought.
Right.
It's a new thought. It's modifying the old. And it's okay. You ended up at the right conclusion by a deadline.
Right.
Which is when you finish saying it.
Right. So I think
that makes sense.
Right. So I think that's the question that the Rav is going to ask, which is all that should matter is whether you counted the right day.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So, and if you ended up, yeah. So let's see what he asks here.
I mean, and I get, maybe I could push back a little on that and say, well, maybe not. Maybe you accidentally counted the right day somehow. You slip of the tongue, like you meant to say something else, you accidentally said the wrong date, and it ends up being the right one because you're thinking the wrong one.
Yeah.
Maybe that would be like, no, like maybe that would like be some amina there.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's actually still wrong, and then we're learning. No, that's still fine.
Yeah.
So I can. So maybe that.
Here's what I would think. Okay, and I think there's like some overlap between what I would think and like what you're saying here is like the mitzvah is to count the Omer, right? So the only thing that should matter in terms of the mitzvah is did you count the right day?
Right.
And the Birkas mitzvah is a bracha on the fact that you're about to engage in the mitzvah. So my question, which I suspect is going to be his question, I haven't done this yet, is why should it matter which day you're thinking when you're saying the Birkas mitzvah?
Right.
Right. Birkas mitzvah is a completely separate thing, you know, and as long as as long as the Birkas mitzvah, is it about the right mitzvah? Yeah, it's about Sefiras Omer.
Right, it doesn't have to be about a specific day.
Right.
It's not like it's a new different bracha every day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right. Oh, good. I think that's actually okay. Good. Hold on to that thought. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's see what he says. Makor hadavarim, the source of the Shulchan Aruch is the Ravia, Demaisi HaBeis Yosef, who's cited by the Beis Yosef. V'ayin sham b'Ravia shedina din zeh lamavur b'brachos hecha denaki kasa de shikra didei upasach adaita dechamra Vasiyam b'shikra. Okay, so it's the Ravia who's basing it on a case in Brachos where you take a cup of beer, okay, and you start saying the bracha thinking it's wine, but then you realize that it's beer. Iyaz linan basar psicha o chasima. Do you go based on the beginning of the bracha, like what you had in mind when you started saying the bracha? Like you thought you were going to say a borei pri hagafen. Right. So you say Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, and in your mind is borei pri hagafen, and then you're like, oh, this is beer. So you say shehakol niyeh b'dvaro. So do you go based on the beginning of the bracha or based on the obasar chasima v'lo ifshata, and he does not resolve it?
Okay, so
I'll finish the paragraph, then we'll talk about it. So therefore, the Ravia also paskins that here too, havi suffix, it's a suffix. Since Sefiras Omer is deoraisa, according to, I guess, the Ravia and the Rambam, then you go lechumra, you go strict. Ulam habes Yosef Sfirle, Sefiras Omer. Bizman hazeh midirabanan ulhachi psak b'Shulchan Aruch de'ino chozer m'varach. But the Shulchan Aruch holds that Sefiras Omer Bizman hazeh is dirabanan. Therefore, he says you don't have to go back and make a new bracha. Yeah, sorry, what were you going to say?
So, in regards to the example of the food example,
yeah.
So the way I had taught anyway was that even if I had accidentally said the full wrong thing, but I corrected it like quickly,
right?
Like, shakol and whatever,
right?
And then whatever, yeah, and like I did that, like really quick. Even that is still okay.
That so that is definitely fine.
So if that's fine,
yeah,
wouldn't it then that for sure be fine if you end up saying the right thing?
So,
you never even said the
right.
Thing.
So I guess here's the thing. I can see there being an actual question here because you think you're saying borei pri hagafen. So when you start saying Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, you've like started that bracha, and the fact that shehakol starts off the same, shouldn't matter because you were saying a different bracha. Like here's a weird example. I mean, I don't even know if I needed an example, but like let's say like someone tells me that there's a birthday, and I assume that it's you. So I start saying happy birthday to you. And then halfway through the song, I realized, oh, they're talking about Yosef. So I just like, happy birthday, dear Yosef. So I was really singing happy birthday to you, even though the words correspond. I did switch it, right. So in other words, so if you're talking about like from the perspective of the listener, it's not going to matter, right? But an act of shavach is an act of like contemplating God as the source of this thing, and
I totally hear that.
Yeah.
But then why?
But with the Omer though, it is the same mitzvah, right? Like you were saying, it's not like you're saying a new shavach on. Yeah.
But on the food, why should it even matter? Then why should it be okay? If you're like you're saying, if the act of shavach was on your part, right, the right thought, and then why should I be able to like just add the different ending at the end and cancel out? Because that's even worse.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I didn't even know we were going to get into the sugya, right? Both of them should be bad. Let's try to think about it for a second here. Yeah.
Also, are we talking about the initial bracha before and the bracha afterwards? The reason I think the reason I'm parting with the bracha afterwards because it talks about psicha and chatim as two separate things, which
I think. I suspect we're talking about the bracha Rishona because he's saying Dinakit Kasa de Shekra Diade. I think it's supposed to say Biade. I don't know. He's taking it in his hand. So I assume it's the bracha Rishona. Yeah. So the question is, why should any of them be good? Right? If you thought so, apparently my premise is wrong, right? Apparently my premise is that so just let's play out both sides. So if we go based on the beginning of the bracha, then since the beginnings of the bracha are the same, then it's okay to no. Hold on. If we go by the beginning of the bracha, it means that since I started off saying the wrong bracha, then I'm not yotze. But if we go by the end of the bracha, then the only thing that should matter is if I conclude right. So the only question is on that one, right? Is on right, meaning that the argument I gave with the happy birthday example is really in support of the position that the first part of the bracha is what matters. The position that says
the first part, you mean the thought? The
thought, yeah. The thought that I had when I was saying the first part, yeah. Right. I mean, look, it is interesting because Shevach is on the one, there's not a full svara or anything, just intuition. Shevach on the one hand is a cognitive act, like you're acknowledging God as the creator of something, but it also is verbalized. Like there's a reality, you're producing an entity of shevach when you say the bracha. So you can make the argument that like as long as you produce the right entity, then you're good, or you could say the very fact that you engaged like as a gavra hamashabeach, like as someone who is engaging in praising God, that you engaged in the wrong thing from the get-go, then you've already invalidated it.
You're saying the detail may or may not matter, basically. Like,
yeah.
It's a question of.
Well, let me just play through with the birthday example, right? Is if the only thing that matters is that I produced the right happy birthday song, then it doesn't matter what I was thinking. But if what matters is my expression of birthday tidings to the right person. So then the fact that then basically I've only done the last half of the song. I haven't actually like done the first half of the song.
Although it does seem like from brachas, by the very nature of the fact that they're categorized, it does matter. Part of it, which obviously it matters to say the right bracha initially. I mean, in general, we say it matters to say the right bracha.
Right.
So that alone already seems to make me lean towards being like, okay, like I can't be, for whatever reason, I don't have to understand exactly philosophically why, but logically it seems to be necessary that I give praise in the right category in order for me to be really giving praise or giving thanks.
Right. And that's the thing that both sides would agree on, which is that if you got the wrong bracha, then, if you said Brei Pri Hagafen on beer, then it wouldn't be yote. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. The only question though is, you can argue though that according to the position that says the end is the only thing that matters, you did engage in praising God on his creation of the thing that you're about to consume, and you said the right thing. It's just that when you initially engaged, the entirety of the praise was not on the right thing because you switched midway. Like when you said you were engaging in praise, but then you said Borei Pri or Shakol Nieh Bidvaro, right? Then you are still doing like half of the praise on.
So I guess, and that's where I'm like, okay, I don't see why that's such a problem, because even if you did start off, the first part of the bracha, just textually, is just blessed are you Hashem.
Right.
You're not wrong.
Right.
Like, sure, maybe there was a secondary thing you're thinking, but you haven't gotten to the part where that's relevant.
Right.
And when you did, you happen to by that point realize, and what is it that in what aspect is it that I'm thanking you and praising you? It's for this. And so that too is, it's not like you were already fine. You had like there's like two different parts of like intention going on, and there's a certain like cerebral knowing just on the facts, I guess, you can say, but that has less to do with your intention of.
But here's the thing. I'm going to make up a term here. Let's say I freeze frame you while you're still making Brei Pri Hagafen in your mind, okay? And I put you through a metaphysical MRI, okay? That can look at your head and see what ideas you're thinking of, right? So what are you thinking of? You're thinking of God is great for creating grapevines, So that's the act of shevach you're engaging in your mind. And then the fact that you like realize your mistake and then you switch to shehakol nieh bidvaro, like that's after the fact, So as a gavra hamashabeach, as a person who's engaging in the cognitive act of praise, which you happen to be verbalizing, you are praising God for something that you're not going to partake of, even though the words that you're using happen to be the same.
So maybe that's all depending on how you. Maybe it depends on the way you relate to that first part of the bracha.
Yeah. Like
you can do that and make a mistake. And I feel like if you generally say brachas very quickly, which maybe you get in the habit of it, you say the first part almost as it's just, I got to say that.
Right. Yeah.
Then for sure, like, because you're really already rushing to the next part.
Right.
But if you recognize it, or you choose to look at it as, okay, anytime I'm going to consume anything, regardless of what it is, I have to give praise to God first. Like that's the first, and then I acknowledge for what it's for.
Yeah.
Then there really are two things happening.
So this is the other direction you could take in this whole svara, which is that maybe this is a question. I was putting it in a question of, for lack of a better term, just to borrow a stock Brisker phrase, what's the address of the halacha? Like, is it in the Chefetz Shel Bracha or is it in the Gavra HaMashabeach? But the way you're putting it is in terms of like, how do we conceive of the bracha itself? Like, is the first half of you conceive of the entire sentence as the praise, and each category of food gets its own sentence, and the sentences just happen to start off the same? Right. Or do you look at as like a general praise, and then you zoom in into the specific? Okay, that's another possibility also. That's good. Yeah. Okay, let's see what he says, unless you found anything, Joseph. I don't know what you're delving into there.
Just trying to figure out what it is. Not find anything of note.
Okay. All right. Thank you for looking. Okay, so let's see what he says. He says, Vihine hataz. So he hasn't even raised his own question yet. He's just saying where the Shulchan Aruch gets the halacha from. Vihine hataz tama alzeh. So the taz is astounded by this.
Who's the Taz?
The taz is the Ture Zahav. I don't know his actual name. David Halevi Siegel, 1586 to 1667, wrote a commentary on the Shulchan Aruch. I think, was it on all of it? I assume it's on all of it. I think it's on all of it. Yeah.
What's that considered? What's he considered?
An acharon. Yeah. Okay. So the Taz said, "My nafkamina iazlin and basar psicha o pasar chazima." What's the difference whether we go based on the first half or the opening or the conclusion? Ha kevin shekvar safar. Or is he talking about Sefiras Omer? Ha kevin shekvar safar kedin yatsi de chavas Sefiras Omer. Once you've counted properly, you're yotzei Sefiras Omer. Da brachos einan ma'akos, because brachos are not absolutely necessary, right? They're not required to be yotzei. V'im kain, and if so, ma hanidon im yachzor v'yivarach lo. Then why are we even talking about whether you go back and make another bracha? Hakvar safar kedin, you've counted properly. V'yatsi de chavasa, umayda hava. You counted properly, you're yote, and what happened. In other words, that's what we were saying earlier. The only thing that should matter is, did you count the right day? If you counted the right day, so then you've done the mitzvah. Congratulations. If you count the wrong day, so then you got to count the right day, But there shouldn't be a question of whether you go back and make a bracha or not. Okay. And that's a question, by the way, on the Raviyah and on the Shulchan Aruch, because the Raviyah holds that it is d'oraisa, and he says it's a suffix, and you got to be machmir, and that's why he doesn't require you to have a new bracha, because we're being wait, no, I got that backwards. Yeah, you got that backwards. Wait, what did the Raviyah hold though? Does he actually hold that you do make a bracha? This sort of sounds like the Rav saying that the Raviyah would hold that you make but Birkas of mitzvah is derabanan anyway. I don't know. All right, whatever. So he's saying that the whole point is moot. The only thing that should be matter is if you counted it correctly. Okay. Velkain hela sham hataz.
Meaning is how you end.
How you end it. Yeah. I don't even want to use the term how you ended. I mean, that's true.
Just that you said it, right?
Yeah, that you said it correctly. You're right. Valkin hela sham hataz demairi shadayin lo safar as guf hasfira. So therefore, the Taz posits that this case is where you haven't done the main counting. Umasha kasav, I don't know what that means yet. Umasha kasav hashulchan aruch v'siyim b'chamishi v'him chamishi hainu shesiyim habracha b'kavana lispor chamishi v'him chamishi v'hainu mamish dumia dehagamara b'brachos denacha kasa deshikra upasa adaita dechamra v'siyim deshikra v'hachanami b'tchilas habracha ta b'cheshbon ubirach adaita desfira b'taus uv'siyim habracha birach adaita dehasfira hanachona. Ulahachi pasuk b'shulchan aruch kedin de'eno tzarech lachzor ulavarach dazlin basar chasimas habracha misfeka derabanan. Okay, I think what he's saying is like this. The way we read the Shulchan Aruch is you made the full bracha on Sefiras Omer, thinking that it was one day, and then you realized your mistake, and then you counted another day. Okay, so the Taz is saying no, it can't be that. The case must be where you said Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam, thinking it's one day. And then mid Birkas HaMitzvah, you remember that it's a different day, and you conclude the bracha Asher Kisham Mitzvah Al Sefiras HaOmer, and then you count the remembered day.
The Taz is saying that that's the quote or the cases
that's the case of the Shulchan Aruch talking about. So he's making it more similar to the case of the bracha on beer and wine. Okay.
That is, but you mean the one that we quoted. From what is his name?
The Raviyah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So just to say that one more time, just make sure that we're on the same page here. So when we read the Shulchan Aruch, we thought that the case was you say the full Birkas HaMitzvah on Sefiras Omer, then you realize your mistake, and then you count something different than you thought?
I thought it was.
Oh, you thought it was this way. Okay, right. I
find.
fine. Okay, so then you're naturally thinking the way that the Taz is thinking. So now the Taz is thinking. No, you said and then you realize, oh, it's a different day. Al Sefiras Omer, and when you said Al Sefiras Omer, you're realizing the new day.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, it would be a more useful case to learn anyway, because then whatever you find out here, it's much easier to know in the other situation.
But the source of the halakha is the other direction, is that we have the question on the brachos on food, and that is unresolved, and then we're trying to see if it applies here or not. And the Ravia says that we extend it to here. The Taz said, why would we extend it to here? It's a Birkas HaMitzvah, and then he answers this on that basis.
Yeah, no, I think I'm fine with that. I think what I'm saying is just that while it's mid bracha.
Yeah.
That if we're saying that the question case that the source is talking about, is midway, that I'm saying that would be more useful than if we said that we finish the bracha.
Yes, correct. Yeah, that's why the Taz is saying it that way. Yeah. Okay, so let's see what he says. So here's how the Taz paskins. Venerally barur. It seems clear to me. Im haisa bracha kula b'taos, that if the entire bracha were in error, ela shenizkar achar kach b'shas sfira karoi, and then you remember what day it was after when you're counting, right? Then you would go back and count and say a bracha on what you already counted. Okay. If you finished, so you said the bracha thinking it's day 4. And then before you count, you realize it's day 5. And then you count day 5. He's saying you should go back and say a new bracha on that, because when you said the Birkas HaMitzvah, you had the wrong day in mind. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Because as was evidenced by the fact that you finished with the wrong.
Right. Although it's only evident to you because you didn't, to the person who's counting, because you don't actually change. Yeah.
Well, wait, no. Wouldn't it be evident because of the fact you said the wrong thing?
No, because either case you're saying Asher Kiddushan Mitzvah between all Sefiras Omer. You're saying the same bracha every night.
Oh, okay. Fine,
yeah.
That's fair. Okay.
Yeah, right. Okay. All right. So now the Rav gets to his question. Okay. Amnam akati sarach iyum. We still need to look into this. Why? Demai she.
I think you're reminding myself of it.
Yeah. My she. I don't know what this word is. Shiata?
Where?
Shin yud, the left column. I've never seen that word. Whenever there's a word that I don't know in Hebrew, it usually is just a modern Hebrew word, because I don't know modern Hebrew. So I'm going to make that assumption.
This is the Rav's thing?
The Rav didn't write it, but it's the Rav's Torah. I don't know. I'm not finding it in the dictionary. Okay. Demai shi'ata ha desfiras omer lefesach adaita dechamra. Shi'ata ha desfiras omer le. I think what he's asking is what connection is there at all between Sefiras Omer and the case of the bracha on beer or on wine? The hasam ta'a beguf nusach bracha. There, you made a mistake in the actual text of the bracha. Ukishepasach bebracha, and once you started the bracha, kivin levarach bracha acheres lagamri. You had intent to make a completely different bracha. And if so, and therefore you've severed the connection between the opening of the bracha and the conclusion of the bracha, right? So that's kind of like what we were saying, right? If you start off saying, thinking that you're drinking wine, and you start off making brei gafen in your mind, and then you realize you're drinking beer and you switch to shehako, there's no conclusion, there's no connection between the beginning of your bracha and the end of your bracha, even though you said the right words, right? You're just two different acts of shevach.
And again, this is in the framework where you're looking at a bracha as one whole thing.
Yeah, right. The im kain yesh lomer dechaser. Okay, we just said that. Aval hava, but in this case of Sefiras Omer, kol bracha haisa b'kavana uvenusach shel Sefiras Omer. The entire intent and the text was of Sefiras Omer. Delo hayalo taos klal b'gufa bracha. You didn't make any mistake in the bracha itself. V'chol taos hi rak b'minyan hayamim. The only mistake you made is in which day you counted. What does that have to do with the bracha itself? So, right, like in either case, when you say the bracha of Sefiras Omer, you're saying the correct formula of the Birkas HaMitzvah, and you have in mind that you're making a Birkas HaMitzvah on the mitzvah of Sefiras Omer. It's just you counted the wrong day. It'd be like, and this is my own thing, let's say I was gonna, I don't know, this is a dumb example. Let's say I was gonna shecht a chicken, okay? And so I'm starting to say the Birkas mitzvah on shechting a chicken, and then I put on my glasses and I realize it's a turkey, right? So either way, I said the right bracha and I had in mind the right mitzvah. It's the same mitzvah of shechita, no matter whether it's a chicken or a turkey. So same thing here. Right. Okay. Hararei bin. Okay, we just read that.
And you also must have thought it was a humongous chicken.
That's true. I had really bad vision. Yeah. All right. So there should be no lack in the bracha in the entity of the bracha at all. The bracha lechuda kai, vasphere lechuda kai. The bracha should be one thing. The sphere should be another thing. Okay, this is the question I thought that he was going to address. Okay, which is why. So this is really a question on the Shulchan Aruch and the Ravia and on the Taz. Why are we even concerned with this question? You made the right bracha, and that's the end of the story.
Mm-hmm, yeah, there is no situation where you could end up saying the wrong thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So then he's gonna now. Let's see if he gives us far here. Okay. Ulam yu'uyan bebir hagra sham. You should look at the. He says, look at the what the Gra writes there. Debir machmas kushya acheres shehiksha aharavia, that he explains based on another difficulty that he is raised against the Ravia. Dema ichpaslan im Sefiras omer midoraisa. Who cares if Sefiras omer is doraisa? Okay, so right, the Ravia's conclusion was dependent on the fact that Sefiras omer is doraisa, and the Gra saying, who cares? Hasof kosof habrachos atzman. This is what I said. Habrachos atzman ina ela midirabanan. The brachos themselves are only dirabanan. V'lama pasak haravia lechumra lefi Sefiras omer midoraisa. Okay, see, this is why I misread the Ravia. The Ravia said that since it's Sefiras omer is doraisa, you go lechumra, which I thought meant that you say the bracha again, and then I was like, but Birkas mitzvah is derabanan.
Maybe a little that you shouldn't say an unnecessary, an extra.
Right, but then in that case, then he's posting the same as the Beis Yosef, and the Rav is saying that the Beis Yosef is posting differently because the Beis Yosef holds as derabanan. So the Gra is asking this very question. He's saying, what does the Ravia mean when he says, since Sefiras omer is doraisa, you should be lechumra and say a bracha? All brachos and mitzvah are derabanan anyway. So, right, like, so it doesn't matter. Like, anytime we're in doubt about, yeah. Ubir bebir hagra, de haravia l'shitasa azil. So the Gra explains that the Ravia is going according to his shita. I just had deja vu. Okay, just announcing. Shesover shenusach hasfira hu shehayom kach v'kach la'omer. Okay, that's a big chiddush. So the Gra is inferring that according to the Ravia, the Birkas mitzvah is Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu al Sefiras haomer shehayom revi'i ba'omer, that he included the count in the bracha itself. Then you could see why he should say that you're machmir, because you counted the wrong day, and then it's exactly analogous to the Brit Gafen stuff. Okay,
it's a long way to tell us that all along he just had a different bracha that he says.
Mm-hmm. It fits though, right?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's radical, because how can you combine the Birkas mitzvah with the sphere itself? Oh, actually, no, he's going to say, I think he's going to say, the inze din Birkas mitzvah kechol mitzvahs. So this is not an ordinary, I skipped something. Ulashita zo, according to this opinion, hasfira atzma hi siyum habracha. The counting is the conclusion of the bracha. Tekach takanas Sefiras omer lekaima b'soch tofes shel bracha. And the takana, according to the Ravia, the takana of Sefiras omer is to fulfill the counting through the text of bracha. Okay, now you might think to yourself, what kind of a thing is that? But if you think about it, there are cases like this. What can you think of that is a Birkas mitzvah? That is a mitzvah that we fulfill through bracha. Like that it's its own mitzvah, but Chazal formulated to say it through a bracha. So Shmuel Ezra is slightly different, because there they came up with the entire concept of a formalized text to the. Maybe you could say that that's an example. I have a similar example. Yeah. Frasha Schala.
Separating the truma.
But there, don't you just there the mitzvah is not fulfilled through recitation; it's fulfilled through the actual hafrasha. Kiddush, right? The mitzvah of Kiddush is to sanctify the day with words, but then we fulfill the mitzvah through saying it as a bracha. right? So it's like a quasi, it's a birkas a mitzvah and the actual fulfillment of the mitzvah in one bracha. So he's saying that Sefiras Omer is like that, is they did not set up birkas a mitzvah and Maisa Sefira. They said the Maisa Sefira is as a bracha.
Is that, is the text part to do it through text? Is that Deraisa?
For Kiddush?
Both for that.
So for Kiddush, the mitzvah Deraisa is just to sanctify the Shabbos day with words, and then Midrabana, it's to say it with a bracha alakos.
So there we're combining, we're doing the mitzvah, the chiyuv Deraisa, and we're just containing it in a Derabanan vessel, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
And what about for Sefiras?
So the Gra is saying that the Raviyah held that they did that with Sefiras Omer also.
And that the text is also, it's a Deraisa chiyuv to do
Sefiras Omer through bracha.
Through.
So when you say, so according to the Raviyah, the way that you do the mitzvah Deraisa is you say Asher Kiddishana b'mitzvah sav v'tzivana al Sefiras Omer shehayom revi ba'omer and bracha.
That's all Deraisa.
That's all Deraisa. Yeah. Well, the mitzvah you're fulfilling is Deraisa, but the Rabbanan set it up that you fulfill that Deraisa through the saying of the bracha.
The formulation
is Rabbanan. Right. Yeah. Okay, let's
see the source for that. We gotta say it in I guess the fact that we have to count it is
well, it's a good question what the Raviyah source is for that, right? Because apparently the Raviyah doesn't even say that. The Gra is positing that that's the only way to make sense of the Raviyah. That's the only way he can compare it to the case of like making a bracha on wine or grape or beer. Yeah.
Maybe in some paragraphs it would make sense to or I'm not sure if it would make better or worse to law omer to say both, which I'm not. It's just,
well, if it's Deraisa, then maybe it matters. It's fine because the Rambam holds that Sefiras Omer is Deraisa, but he also seems to hold that it doesn't matter what lashon you use to count it. We read that in the Siddur. So even though he holds Deraisa, he holds you wouldn't have to do both. I want to say that the Rav's minhag was to say both.
I know our family was doing that, so take it that we will.
Yeah, right. So it must be to be choshesh for the fact that it's Deraisa. Yeah.
I know our family is doing that, so take it that we will.
Yep. Okay. So let's see going on here. The ein zeh din birkas mitzvos kachol mitzvos. This is not a regular birkas mitzvah like on all other mitzvos. Shebracha kodemus the mitzvah v'mitzvah nasis b'fnei atzma. All manashtana halayla, right? All other birkas mitzvah, the bracha is one thing and the mitzvah is another thing. Ela kan tiknu es aspira atzma b'sof matbea shabracha. But here they establish that you count in a bracha. Kiddush v'havdalah yeshlam tofes shabracha. Just like Kiddush and Havdalah have a formula of bracha. V'losagi lekiddush bezichron dvarim b'shira al hayayin. It wouldn't be enough halachically to just say the words of shira over wine. Ulahavdalah b'haskaras gimel havdalos. Ella tiknum b'matbea shabracha. They established it as a bracha. Kach Sefiras Omer milachatchila tiknum b'matbea shabracha. That's how they set up Sefiras Omer through the format of bracha. L'chein habracha chashuva kesafik D'oraisa, kamo ikra hasfira. Therefore, the bracha is considered a suffix d'oraisa regarding sfira. The bracha hi chelik mesfira because the bracha is part of the sfira. Yeah.
This is a basic question.
Yeah.
Because this is kind of new information for me.
Yeah.
And maybe it was just something I forgot that for like Kiddush that really the bracha or the mitzvah is to just say to sanctify the day through words and we formulate it through a rabbinic, phrase. So based off that. Why couldn't you say that you still, even like, let's say I didn't say Kiddush as the formula.
Yeah.
And I just somehow so except words about the day.
Yeah.
Why couldn't I say that I was over on the mitzvah the Rabbanan, but I at least did the Raisa.
Yeah.
I could still be, I'll find I'm still over, but like.
So we actually do say that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we actually do say that. And the case of that we're familiar with is, I don't know why they allow us to do this, but you know how when, let's say like, this is just, I'm going to use a common case here, where a woman is at home and her husband's at shul, right, on Shabbos, on Saturday, like Motzei Shabbos, right? So the husband comes home and makes Havdalah. But let's say the woman wants to do malacha before. So she says, Baruch HaMavdi ben Kosh l'chol.
Right.
That qualifies as Havdalah.
Right.
Now with Havdalah, we are then permitted to go back and like do it in its full form. It's not like you've lost the opportunity. Similarly, we hold that when you daven on Friday night, then in your Shemona Esrei, you in the middle bracha of the Shemona Esrei on Friday night, you do say Kiddush. That's when you're Yotzei Kiddush D'Oraisa. And then you come home and you make Kiddush ala kos, and you fulfill the Rabbanan there also. I don't know why we allow it to do, why we say that like you've lost your opportunity, why we don't say that. I mean, yeah.
Isn't this a question? Shouldn't the woman be the one making Kiddush?
Right. She's be doing the full way. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I've never looked into this sugya, but yeah. So the short answer is that you're
okay. Well, then if we are saying that, if we do say that that's okay, then on this situation, why should he justify that you go back and say it if you did still do the Raisa part?
Right. That's a good question. That is a good question. Meaning you're saying it should be the same thing. It's D'Oraisa, the mitzvah is to count, but Midrabanan, they set it up to do it through a bracha. Right.
He's like trying to make it like confusing, but then
it's a good question. Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah.
Confusing. Scenario. Did you say the right day or not?
He's saying that the only thing that matters. He's saying that it's one maaseh of sfira al yedei bracha. And if you, according to the Ravia, if you said the right day but started the bracha wrong, or started the bracha right and then concluded with the wrong day, in either way you go back and count with a bracha again, because it's one action. And Chizkiyahu is saying the only thing that should matter is that you counted the right day. Fine, you didn't do it in the ideal way, D'Rabbanan, but you at least fulfilled the D'Oraisa. That's a good question. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's a
and then because you should be you should have the chomer that you're not going to say like an unnecessary name of Hashem.
Yeah,
then you shouldn't go back.
Right, correct. Yeah. So I have one possibility for maybe how you would answer that is there are two ways that the Rabbanan are misaking D'Oraisa entities. Okay, sometimes there's a basic D'Oraisa and then they create a way to fulfill it, and and it's still possible to fulfill the D'Oraisa in another way. Okay, like they're just giving you like a preferred way to do it.
This is how I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah. The other way is that they're the ones who actually like legislate how the D'Oraisa is fulfilled. Okay. In which case you have to do it that way. Yeah. So it must be that he's learning that is the way that they did it.
You thought that you were doing the D'Oraisa sanctification, but you didn't even do that.
Exactly. Yeah, like an example of that would be if
that sounds almost like what they're saying. Which do we say this is that the formulation of the brachas that we do is it like a Torah Shabbat Peh thing?
You mean the text?
Like Bochat Hashem looking at
like
that, like shouldn't that be? Because then if they're saying if we're going by that idea, that's how you get the way to do it.
Yeah.
If then that makes it sounds like Hashem gave them that. How would they know that that's the way to do it at the Raisa level?
Yeah.
So they're not calling it just Rabbanan. They're saying no, this is the only way to actually properly do the Raisa.
Yeah.
And it's like it's the Raisa. It's just that we got it from them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't call this Torah Shabbat Peh in the sense that it was like handed down to Moshe. This would be something where like the Rabbanan were given the right to formulate, to create the structure. I'm trying to, there's definitely examples of this. I'm just trying to think of an example of this. Hold on. I don't know. There's got to be examples of this. Yeah.
There's some sheets along those lines of how Chol works.
I was thinking Chol was the first example I thought of, but there with Isser, I feel like it would be different than setting up a mitzvah, because we're trying to find a case where you do the D'Oraisa, you do the mitzvah D'Oraisa, but not through the format of the Chachamim. So you could say your Yote D'Oraisa. Yeah.
There's another case. I assume have to be hollow because the text is obviously not D'Oraisa.
I looked into that over Pesach, because you were asking about if halal is D'Rabbanan, then how could there be a halal D'Oraisa? Like what would they have used? So there are shitos who hold that the prakim of halal were said by Moshe Rabbeinu, and like David just like wrote them down. I find that hard to believe, but there are shitas who hold like that. But yeah, that's a good example. Is that let's plain shot. Okay, Korban Pesach requires halal. Okay, like when you do the shechita of halal, and when you do it at night, when you eat it at night. Okay, David HaMelech came around like how long after like 400 years, 440 years after Matan Torah, right? So there were a good couple hundred years where presumably they were doing halal on Pesach without David's Tehillim, right? So presumably they were just saying other words of Shevach. So let's say I come to the night of the Seder and I just make up my own Shevach, and I don't use David's. So I would think we say that you're not Yotzei Halal, but but conceptually, like, we could think, let's put this, you can conceive it in two ways.
You're doing this pure way, but then, you know what this kind of sounds to me like? As someone who's new to this community.
Yeah.
You can tell me maybe this is more like a simple example that maybe I have a lot of terms to hold up. But the way we bench, really you're supposed to all bench together and one guy leads and you follow. And
right.
When they said, well, but then we don't, basically people don't have the focus anymore.
Yeah.
So now we do this other form that's basically the way most people do it.
Right.
Although it's not the original form. And then there may be, if I was to say, well, I'm going to do it where like I'll just follow along, and someone might say, yeah, but you can't really do that now outside our community.
Yeah. I hear the analogy. Yeah. Yeah.
Wouldn't be Yotzei.
They wouldn't be Yotzei what? Halal. They wouldn't be Yotzei halal.
I was going to say that I would maybe, and then maybe they might say, oh, you're not Yotzei the benching then because you're doing it this way that you're not really.
Right.
It's formulated now like this.
Right. So this is analogous to that. I think the argument that you wouldn't be Yotzei halal is I think there is this idea, and I feel like there's a Gemara about this, that once David HaMelech came along, then David HaMelech's Tehillim are considered the way to praise God, and we don't use anything else. Like V'shir David Avdecha Mishichacha, you don't use other shirim to praise God. Those are like the golden standard.
Yeah. Maybe that's why. Maybe because we were allowed to do our own custom versions until someone came up with the best way.
Yeah.
And then once he did that, there's no reason to go back.
Right. Another example of that is like, before Moshe Rabbeinu came along, the Avos davened, but they used whatever words they wanted. But now we are limited by whatever Moshe Rabbeinu said and whatever the Antiknesa put in their in the tefillah. Right. Yeah. Okay. So we got through half of this. We didn't even get to the Rambam yet. But this is all set up for how he's going to explain to answer our question in the Rambam. So I guess
I needed this slow setup.
Okay, no, this is good, and it was fun things to think about for me at least. So I guess we will end up spending the entire week on Shviras Omer stuff, and then plan to go back to Talmud Torah next week. Okay, so let's try to finish this one tomorrow. All right, nice.
Yeah.
All right.